I think it was recording on. Hello, everybody, again. I was just saying, once I hit the record button, it was nice to hear, I think it was Christy Hansen say how she would sometimes listen to the recordings, and how nice it was to hear our voices and, things like that. So the emotional benefit of videos on YouTube as well as informational. So well, let's go around and introduce ourselves, and then if you have anything that you would like to ask or for us to talk about today, I will be taking notes. Hi, everybody at home who are watching. I'm Susan Walker, formerly with the University of Minnesota, and now of myself. So, and I will turn it over to Ellen.
Hi, Ellen Hafner, parent educator in Northfield. And my question today, and I still probably will put it out on the Friends of Family Ed, but there's a lot of information and stuff online right now about the mental load and emotional labor and stuff like that. And I'm just wondering if any of you have tackled that as a topic. I sat for like 2 hours on Thursday night trying to put it into a lesson, and I'm really having a hard time getting it so that it's not trashing men, particularly since so much of the research is on women, and all that. I created a lesson and I haven't taught it. I spent 2 hours on Thursday night ready to go, Wednesday night, sorry, ready to teach it on Thursday. Like my classes, 3 classes on two on Thursday and 1 today, never touched it. So I'm still just curious if any of you have how you've done it. I have something, but I'm afraid it's gonna flop. So, and I'll pass it to Julie since she's next in my line of sight.
Yeah, just before Julie, just to clarify, so when you say the mental load and the emotional labor, you mean of the parent, of the caregiver?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. All right.
And mostly it's about mothers, and so much of everything out there is like moms, and men aren't asking for help. Or, dads say, make me a list, and moms are like, no, that's just more emotional labor. So, yeah. So how do you create a lesson on that doesn't turn into a total dad bash fest?
Yes. Yep. Got it.
Or the other parent, like I have quite a few dads who stay home and they struggle too, because they're carrying a lot of the emotional load and mom isn't. And then even I have, a couple same-sex families, and it's always one parent gets kind of thrown under the bus. So I just don't want that to happen.
Yep. Thanks, Mom. Julie.
I'm Julie. I'm from the parent educator in Owatonna, and I don't have anything in particular, just hanging out today. Pass it to Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie, and I'm the parent educator in Jordan. And I think maybe a month ago or more, I had wanted to talk about how people do home visiting. So Jordan is a small district, and the parent educators, I think years ago, used to do some home visiting, but it's usually done by our, special ed team, our birth to 3 teacher, our speech pathologist. So I'm curious how districts do that. Like how would I even start to do home visiting? I guess I don't know. I saw that there was a panel at Menafee, and I almost signed up for it, but I didn't because there were some other ones I wanted to do. So I don't know. And I think those districts where they do it a lot maybe are bigger than Jordan. So maybe we're just I don't know. So if we have time, otherwise we can push it to next week. And let's see, Carissa, did you go yet?
I'm Carissa, parent ed in Mounds View. I don't have a super big one, but I guess needy families. High need. I have a very, very high needs family right now, and I think we're doing okay with it. But just how people like boundaries, I guess, which is a thing you've talked about, Susan. So, it's time, and we've tried supporting hard, and it's probably time for us to back off a little bit while still supporting her while she's at class. But anyway, if we get to it, we get to it. If we don't, it's not a big deal.
And is that, Carissa, is that like emotionally needy or informationally needy or like practical support kind of community services needy? All of the above?
Not so much community support needy, more the emotional needy. Kiddo needs an evaluation also. So maybe in a way, we tried starting one and it didn't go well and she pulled the plug on it. But so very emotionally needy, lots going on at home. And then some kiddo with high needs as well.
Mhm.
I feel you, Krista. I've got one like that right now.
Well, should we take the points in, or the questions or the things in order from Ellen's on mental and emotional labor, and then to home visiting, particularly in smaller districts, and how do you get that going? And then to Chris's question about assisting or placing boundaries with a particularly needy family. Sound great, like great topics. Gosh. Okay, so Ellen, we'll go back to you if you could sort of just
Yeah.
rephrase and put back out up there, you know.
Yeah, just has anybody tackled emotional labor, mental load of mothers, and basically how do you help families have conversations around moms feeling like if they're doing everything? I know real Zach Thinkshare is on Instagram, and he has all these videos about ways that he adds mental load to his wife. One of them was muffins came out of the oven and he said, "Hey honey, are these muffins too hot to give to the toddler?" And she got really mad at him. She's like, "Well, duh, you idiot. Of course they're too hot. They just came out of a 400-degree oven." So he catches himself making mistakes and then he talks about them. So that's awesome. It's a great resource. And a lot of my families are talking about it. So how do you have
What's it called again, Ellen? What's that called?
real Zach Think Share. He also has a YouTube channel, and he calls himself the recovering man child. But even what he calls himself, I don't like it. I don't like, just because your husband doesn't know how to see things that need to be done doesn't mean he's a man child. You know what I mean? So I'm just curious if anybody has done this as a lesson.
And that's from Instagram, the real Zach.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep. He's on YouTube as well. All of his stuff on YouTube also.
I don't think this is exactly what you're looking for, but I did. So you know those files that are on the Friends of Family Education page? I did the one about balancing family needs a few weeks ago, and I think there's some of that in there that you could find useful. You know, there's some questions. The first discussion question was, whose needs come first in your family, I think, and how do you feel about that? And most of the parents were like, well, my kids. But I had a mom that said, mine have to come first, you know, and we kind of talked about when you're on the plane, you have the oxygen mask that you have to put on yourself first in order to help others. So I would maybe check out give that a look, and there might be a few things from there you could pull. Again, it's called Balancing Family Needs is the lesson.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Here's an example. There's a really great video. Another gal, he shared a video that someone else did that showed how moms who are at home all day are working and dads who come home, like their work day is done. And so I'm going to find it. She did this little video with Lego people in a house. It's like Spider-Man and Ernie have a child together. And then how to have this conversation with your family. But also just even showing that, I feel like, is really mean to the parent I don't know. I don't know how to do it without hurting feelings. But maybe some other people.
Could you just put that out there and just say,
Yeah,
be real honest and say, my intention is not to can we be mindful of that? I don't want it to be a mom against dad or mom against mom, or I don't know, just be real honest.
Yeah.
Say, let's please keep this respectful and we're not going to do any bashing.
That's a great idea. I can do that.
Yeah, I think
I can do
you
that.
seem like you could do that well. So yeah.
I try. I'll put this little video in the chat. You can copy it and watch it later. Well, that's okay. We can move on. I'll ask on the, that's great. I will definitely check that out. Balancing family needs. And thank you.
Yeah, I
I feel
just,
like
Awesome, Katie.
it's coming up in my class. I don't have a lesson on it either, so it's a good thing to think through, but I have one class in particular who has lots of them have 3 or 4 kids. So that
Mhm.
crew kind of brings it up somewhat regularly.
Mhm.
So it probably would be a good thing to
Yeah.
do a whole lesson plan.
you know, and there's different family configurations, as you were saying, Ellen, about, you know, that there are fathers that are at home, and then in terms of emotional labor, I mean, depending on the type of job the quote unquote working parent has, right? I mean, they're expending so much emotional labor in their work that, like they're burned out too, right? Like
Right.
they're completely fried. And you know, and I wouldn't say it's the danger, but you know, some of this comes down to couple communication, you know,
Absolutely.
and that can be tricky because we're not therapists, right? We're not couple and family therapists. That said, you know, it is part of co-parenting, right? To have good communication and to open up, you know, the conversations about expectations, you know, in the family, and about roles and who does what. And because it could be, you know, the emotional labor again could be from the parent who is the one who's working. There could be a child in the family that has special needs, or there could
Right.
be, you know,
Yeah.
remarkable health needs of an extended family member. You know, I mean, whatever it is. There's also commuter couples where, you know, one of the members can't even be at home, or military families, right, during a deployment that falls so much. And then it's more a matter of, you know, the emotional labor and the mental load that's carried by the non-deployed parent, by the one, you know, who is. And so I think sometimes too, just opening the discussion to the range of types of families and the types of configurations that can contribute to, you know, the mental load and the burnout and that kind of thing, as being just such a reality today. And
Yeah.
you know, I think what that can do then is to take off kind of the traditional, you know, 2-parent, you know, like I'm the one at home and I'm the one doing all the stuff and the other parent's like not doing enough or whatever. But if the conversation is opened up to it being a kind of a normative experience for a lot of families, and that there are a lot of different family configurations, then it's just like, but it doesn't mean that it's right if it's normative. It doesn't mean that it's right if an individual is so burned out that they're not doing self-care, you know, they're not effective for their work, for their kids, for their partner, for their community, whatever it is. And sort of kind of, again, bringing it back to then, even though it's normative, it doesn't mean that it's right that we're all stressed, right?
Right.
And
I
so,
was
Right.
I
you
was
know,
gonna just add that I'm sure that single parents experience that just as much as parents who have a spouse who goes to work. So I mean,
Right.
it doesn't have to be about, you know, pointing fingers or putting blame on anyone else. It can be more about like the self-care aspect.
yep.
So
And communication. Cool. All right. Well,
Yeah.
thanks, guys. We can move on.
I
Does
know.
that-
And
I just
so
want
make
to
these
throw
other
there, this
questions
makes
are
me
good
think
today.
about Brene Brown, and I don't have it in front of me. I can't think exactly the words
The
she uses,
50-50
but
myth. The 50-50 myth.
50-50, and her
I love it.
it's not crisis plan. It's not that strong of a word, but
No.
her like having a plan as a couple of what I'm at 20%, I'm
And you're
also
at
at
50.
30%.
Yep.
And
Somebody
what
has
is
to
our
come up with the
plan
other.
when
Mhm.
everyone's capacity is low? It doesn't, the reasons
Yep.
why people's capacity is low doesn't really matter. Is it from work? Is it from life? Is it from kids? But
Mhm.
this is the reality of where we're at, and how do we deal with it then? I can't remember what she calls it. It's got a.
I know. I totally know what you mean. Yep.
But so that kind of takes the blame away, and I'm sure she has some
Mhm.
things about nice ways of talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And, you know, I think it's always healthy for us, especially as women in the way that we're socialized, to have an open
Mhm.
conversation about what are our expectations of ourselves, you know? And because sometimes that emotional labor and burnout and everything comes from this little engine inside that is less about the people around us and what they're doing and more like, and I should be doing this and I feel guilty if I'm not doing this, right? And so, and that too then takes the blame off of other people, but has us just asking those questions of ourselves. And again, that aligns with any family configuration, you know, is just, you know, just because we're stressed doesn't mean that it's good. I do hope you do post it as well on Friends of Family Education, Ellen. Yeah, because I think it'd be interesting to see what other people have done on this. Yeah. Good. And I am going to do a Menafee session um, as a follow-up to the workshop in the fall on boundaries, so that we can do more, you know, individual, what are individual challenges rather than sort of general principle stuff. So that's a geez, great connection to that. So good, thank you. So let's now turn our attention to home visiting. And Katie, would you restate your question or your interest on that topic?
Sure. So I'm just kind of wondering how I would even start looking into doing home visiting as the parent educator here in Jordan. If your district does it, or if you do it, how do you do it? Where, you know, do you go by yourself? Do you go with a team? We don't, like I said, our special ed team are the ones that do the home visiting here in Jordan. So just kind of curious how that works.
Katie, I need to hop in my car, but I'm going to tell you what's in our community. Oh, can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. What's in our community ed brochure? We do not have a home visiting program. We have the Parent Child Plus program that is done. And like that's all they do, right? And we have county home visitors. So what I have changed the verbiage to is parent coaching. And so in our brochure, it talks about early childhood consultation / parent coaching. It's I can show it to you. It's a very small blurb right here in our community ed brochure. It's really short. And here's what it says. Are you looking for extra parenting support? Do you have questions or concerns about your child's behavior or development that you would like to discuss privately? Common questions include eating, sleeping, toilet training, and tantrums. So I hit like the big ones, right? The ones that people always have questions about. Speak with a licensed parent educator or early childhood teacher by phone, video chat, or in person at our building or in your home. This service is free for all Northfield parents. And then it's my phone number. Is that my phone number? That is, I don't know. Like, I don't think that's my phone number. I need to change that. And then I have a bit link there, and that does come to me. It's a Google form. Do I get a lot of people signing up for it? I do not. And then I will also post it on social media and just say, hey, everybody, if you live in Northfield, if you have a kid in Northfield, you are eligible for a coaching, for parent coaching. I don't call it home visiting. I think that scares a lot of families away. And I feel like, and then just saying extra parenting support, but you got to get it out in the community. You know what I mean? You have to kind of spread the information around, so that people know. But I will tell you, I don't get a lot of hits on this because people, if they don't have a relationship with you, they're not interested in calling and telling you that their kids are up until midnight because they feel like it's super shameful. Another thing I did. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, can I ask you 2 questions quick?
Yeah.
First question is, Do you have, like an Instagram page for just Northfield ECFE or
Early childhood.
early childhood? Okay.
And once on the stories I posted and I said something like, hey, if anybody has parenting questions, we have staff in the building who can help you. No bites. And then I said something in parentheses like, we've heard it all. You can't scare us, something like that. But parents just are really afraid to reach out for help from strangers because we're essentially strangers to out the public.
I was gonna ask, is this ever something that somebody like in your class, if they just need a little extra time with you, would do that? Or who do you get? How many do you get who contacts you?
It's really small. In fact, I will post it. I posted it once this is weird. I had a mom post on something about nutrition and I posted, it's like, hey, contact me. And she did. And she was lying. They weren't her kids. They were her niece and nephew. Whole other story. Really bizarre. But I've gotten a few people that way. Like people post on our Facebook groups and whatever. And I'm like, hey, I'm available. And usually it's just, I need help with preschool around town, or, and I might meet with a parent once or twice, or we email back and forth. I would say less than 3 a year. How's that? It's not super, I don't lucrative isn't the word, but you know what I mean? Like it just doesn't, they're not knocking on my door. Let's put it that way.
I actually just had a family reach out to me via email. She's a mom in one of my classes and she said her daughter has been misbehaving so badly that the family doesn't even enjoy being around her right now. So she wanted to know if she could just meet with me for a little bit. Her husband wanted to come too. And I've never had a parent ask to do that. So I kind of went, ooh, I'm like, that's new. So I consulted our birth to 3 teacher. She's really helpful, was very open to kind of giving me some ideas. And so we sat down and did that last week. She's got little 1-year-old twins who were in the parenting room with us, tearing everything apart, which was fine. But it went well. Like I hope I gave them some good ideas. I think it went well, but I also just reminded them, this is going to take time. She sounds like a super spirited, strong-willed, needs attention kind of thing. But yeah, it was new. It was very new for me, but I like that idea of parent coaching. So.
And then you legit have to say things like, are you struggling with potty, eating, bedtime? Like those are the ones. And then parents read it and they're like, oh yeah, I totally am struggling with that, but
Yeah.
again, it's really hard. Part of the reason so many people come to ECFE is because they know that we have a relationship and then, they see the other people. But when you're having like a one-on-one conversation with somebody you don't know, that is really threatening, I think, super threatening, which is why parents just don't, just don't,
Yeah, and I think like this particular mom, they're not always comfortable like bringing things up in the group, so then that might be a good time to get to the meat of that a little bit more. And sometimes they just want to talk. Like I think, and her husband was he was talking a lot and you can tell it's been hard. And I think they just want someone to listen to them too. So that I tried to tell myself that to just make sure I'm listening and affirming, try to be really affirming with them. And you reached out for help. That's so important. That shows that how much you care. And, but yeah, I think, thanks, Ellen. Thanks for the insight.
mm-hmm.
I don't do home visiting. I did some when I first started here in Mounds View and felt very sort of fish out of water. And with some of the other parent eds back then, we had one in particular that do I go by myself? Do I go with someone? Who is that? She was very adamant that she would not ever go by herself, that she didn't feel that was a safe thing to do. And we've never had a very big home visiting program at all. So, I mean, that is a conversation, but we don't really advertise it anywhere, but I will do some like coaching essentially. Most of mine come from screening. When they go through screening, the person who does screening will, you know, what questions or concerns you have, potty training comes up, and they'll say, well, if you would be interested in talking with a parent educator about that, I can. We had a parent ed that was also doing screening, so I got quite a few, as a strong statement, probably not even a dozen from her this year. She's no longer doing it, so I have a feeling I won't be getting any more this year. But it's tricky because I will still call them. I'll call them and they often don't necessarily respond. It's nice to get an email if you can, because then if it's potty training, I'll send out some generic things and maybe it can start a conversation. But it's really, I enjoy it when they're more open to it. And sometimes it's just some of those simple tools that, right? It's not that complicated, but we can share some of those tried and true ideas that parents you don't just think of it on your own. Right. So, and I find most of the time, like one conversation, I'll follow up with an email with some things, articles, visuals, different tools. And most parents are done at that point, but a lot, you know, when they will call me back and I do get to talk to them, a lot of times they're like, oh, this is good. Thank you. And they're done. So it can be a really great thing to do, but yeah, I don't know how you.
The other thing you could try, Katie, kind of along the lines of getting them from screening, is to tell your preschool teachers that you're doing it. So say to your preschool teachers, hey, I'm available for coaching, because a lot of times these preschool kiddos, like I got one the other day where the kiddo's falling asleep in school. And the parent said, you know, they were like, oh, well, you know, what time is he going to bed? And they're like, oh, he's going to bed at midnight. And the teacher's like, oh, well, it might help if you got him on a schedule. It's like, yeah, that doesn't work for us, you know? So, ugh. And so she handed her off to me and I'm like, okay, I don't think she's gonna, but whatever, you know, I'll try. I sent her an email. I will try to have a conversation with her about it. But your preschool teachers can also direct you to families who might need some more support. And calling yourself a parent coach instead of a parent educator, I feel is a little less like, I know everything about parenting and here I'm going to teach you. Whereas if you're coaching, you're working with them. So I think the wording is really important.
Great, thank you so much.
With that too, being willing, like sometimes I don't get a ton of those either, but sometimes from preschool teachers too. And sometimes I'll just give things to the preschool teacher to then pass on to the family because they have a relationship with that teacher, but she doesn't have time or, you know, the resources that we do as parent ed. So she doesn't really know, you know, how to share all that. So sometimes it'll go that way too.
Katie, I was wondering about the birth to 3 and the special ed teachers who are doing home visiting. I mean, along with Ellen's point, are especially the birth to 3, are they parenting educators who are doing it?
No.
Yeah, I didn't think so. Yeah. And
no.
So, I mean, that too could be a complementary thing where you work along with the people who are doing home visiting and let them know that you are available. And then again, I think from the trust standpoint, they can make the entree for you with the families to say, you know, we're working with your child on XYZ. It seems like you're also struggling with this, which could be a, you know, fairly generic or common parenting thing. Or the teacher might just simply, you know, notice that this is an individual parent who needs a little more support, you know, a little more emotional support, but they don't know you, and maybe they haven't been to ECFE. And so the person who is doing the home visiting then could almost refer you to them, you know, saying, you know, I've got this wonderful parenting educator who works in our office and she teaches the ECFE classes. And she would be very happy to, you know, talk with you. So, you know, kind of working the network within kind of thing.
That's a great idea. So kind of depending on the situation or the family, maybe they need some, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so true. I've never thought of it that way, where our teachers are wonderful, but they don't have parent ed training. So
I do have,
that's great.
in a couple of different classes, we have, they're are they both 2-year-old class? Well, one's a 1 and 2s and one's a 2-year-old class. We have some, special ed, staff that come in for a couple of the kids. And one of them did say to me that, and I'm kind of thinking I could probably take this a little further. She was saying that sometimes the concerns that are brought up when she's visiting families are not really related to their kids' particular special needs, but it's just general parenting and kid concerns, like, maybe it's bedtime or whatever. And parents don't always know that that's not something that's unique to them, that this is something that is typical in most families, that this is a concern.
Yeah.
So just something to just add to that I think
Yeah.
sometimes parents don't always even know that this is something that is, something that other people are dealing with.
Yeah, and I think last year, our birth to 3 teacher, she had a mom that was kind of like, well, this is my time to talk to her now. Like that, mom thought that was her time to chat with the teacher. Like, and the kid would just kind of be there. Like, so maybe, yes, so like I could talk with the parent a little bit for part of it while the teacher was working with the child. Although you do want the parent to kind of be involved in that, but maybe more as a support. I don't know. Yeah, this is good though. This gives me a lot to think about, and this is why I love this call. You ladies are great. So helpful.
I'm really glad too that it sort of is more for you, Katie, in your situation, as sort of a complement to what might be existing, or a complement to what you're currently doing, such as, Ellen's suggestion about the coaching. I know in some areas, establishing a home visiting program is huge. I mean, administratively, legally, all the bells and whistles. And so, and so if you can meet families' needs through your existing services, then, then it just is simpler. I mean, because some programs, some districts, and unfortunately, Nikki's not on the call, but I know in Robbinsdale, they have a very significant, and then she'll also talk about the HUGS, program in Hennepin County and that sort of thing. So, the other thing I would just say is if there were speakers at Menafee on this, you might reach out to them, find out, like the names of the folks who were offering that, and maybe just, have some, I would say, not general questions, because that's just like, how do I answer this? But if you had a very specific question about, your district, or how, since they know home visiting, what would their suggestion be for, sort of easing into it as a complement to what you're currently doing?
Sure. I think I saw Nikki's name on the panel for home visiting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
there you
so
go.
thank you.
I don't know who it is, but I know Anoka Hennepin has a pretty robust home visiting program too. So I'm not quite sure who you could reach out to, but another district that does it a lot.
Oh, thank you, Carissa. Is Susan, is she from Anoka Hennepin or no?
Yes, Penny.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yep. And in the teacher's license, in the parent and family educator teaching license, there are all these competencies for home visiting that, at least I know our program at Minnesota didn't really cover a lot of. And occasionally we would have students who would come in and, ask about our preparation on those competencies. And so, I mean, that's all I know about it. It was the existing curriculum, but it is part of the teacher's license. So that's another aspect, if somebody wanted to add more home visiting, to the work that they were doing, or as Ellen called it, more coaching, so coaching, also allows kind of more of the video, the consultation kind of thing. And that's another, like, is to discriminate what's the difference between coaching, which, you can easily do. And then when are you a home visitor, right? Because I know even like there are home visitor, programs and curricula, and like the nurse home visitor program that was very well studied and that kind of thing. So I think that's the other bit with doing, classic home visiting is it's not parent coaching, right? There's a lot more to it.
There's way more to it. It is intense. Like when I started doing a little bit of home visiting with one mom several years ago, pre-COVID, I was pulling up the Growing Great Kids curriculum. It is like a 40 or 60 hour training thing. And there are these binders. And one of my staff people was like, you really shouldn't do that if you haven't had the training. I'm like, when am I going to get trained in this thing? Like, I don't have, I'm not, but I will tell you, I am on the Southeast Minnesota home visitor advisory board. These women have tremendous training.
Yeah.
I have none of it. And frankly, I don't want to do home visiting. I would rather get those parents in the classroom so they can be with others in community, learning from other people. Do you know what I mean? So I'm okay with not home visiting. That's why I'm okay with a coaching situation. And then getting them to the classroom. Because I'm not gonna lie. I do not feel equipped to be a home visitor. I just don't. And I'm not really sure I'm interested in 40 hours of training to do it.
Yeah.
So
especially when we don't have a robust program.
Ellen, when you do get those 3 people-ish a year, I'm just curious, where do you meet with them?
Usually we do Zoom.
Oh, okay.
And then usually I have them join the cult. I mean, ECFE. I do. I feel like almost all of the family, I think I've visited with, I think I've had maybe 6 over the years, and 4 of them I've gotten to join ECFE.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Thank you all so much. I have like 3 pages of notes. Well, I mean, like in my little notebook, but that was great. I appreciate you all so much.
Yeah, the last thing, of course, I always have one more thing, right? So my last thing is just thinking about sort of, and Carissa, to your point too, I'm thinking about identifying what the parent needs. Like, what are the outcomes, right? Because if you had a coaching thing, and like when Carissa said, I could share information and that would be it. That's fine. Like, that could be what the parent really wants and needs. They don't need, whereas the home visiting I've worked with, right, has been, as Ellen was saying, it's been intensive and it's a curriculum. And a lot of times there's a whole lot of skill development. And this is why it's generally birth to 3 and, generally targeting particular families and the kinds of things, and also within the family's environment. And that's part of what a home visitor will do as well, is do an observation of the home environment. In fact, the home scale came from that, HOME, with checklists on various kinds of things, like how many books are around here, and is a presence of toys, and things like that. And so I think any of these choices outside of what people are doing in a traditional ECFE class also can be kind of finessed to what the parents' needs are, like what the true outcomes are that you're looking for. That a lot of times it could be that middle ground of parent coaching, because I think for some parents, they may not, they may have a specific question, but what their real felt need is they just want a one-on-one meeting with a professional so that they don't feel alone, right? That they feel like, I've had this time with this wonderful person and now I feel better, like, because I don't feel alone, right? And I can ask maybe a question or two that I don't feel comfortable asking in the whole thing, or maybe I can ask something a little more targeted to my child, and I feel more comfortable asking that. So I think it's like anything, like when we plan a program, is starting at the end. Like, what is it that we're wanting to accomplish with the families? Is it information? Is it support? Is it providing comfort? Or is it true, regular meetings, skill building, that I think a lot of the home visiting curricula really are getting at in the home setting, and working with the parent and the child, and this kind of stuff dates way back to, there used to be like what was it, a toy, like a whole, like, educators would bring toys with them to the home environment, and teach parents at home with the toys and stuff. So anyway, but just my last thing is just, I think in wanting to expand beyond the classroom is also that identification of what are the needs that I'm really meeting, right? And how best can I do that within the resources that I have?
Is it okay to, that's a great reminder, Susan, thank you. Is it okay to, and I'm thinking of that meeting I had with that parent where she had told me in class before that they're just looking, looking for some tools, some new tools to try. So that was obvious, but is it okay to just say, what exactly are you looking for? Are you looking for solutions, or like what's the outcome? What would be the outcome for you? So just kind of putting it out there like that.
Yeah, I mean, also, she may not know. I mean, she may give you one response, but your gut is telling you that there's something more there, that there's an emotional thing, or a female thing, or, whatever it is. So there's the cognitive, there is what we know, and that's easy to meet. But I think what we do as professionals with our expertise is we read the situation. So, but absolutely, because the last thing you want to do is do all this interpretation and reading and then miss the point. Like, they'll leave and they'll go, well, that wasn't helpful because she didn't even tell me
Not what I
wanted. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I find parents want things to do, like, and they don't always. I go to that. I feel like almost every single one of those calls I do, I end up going to that NCPMI website, and they've got all the beautiful things around visual schedules, how to set up a calm down corner, how to support kids in transitions. Like, it's all, I always end up sending some element from that website, because it's hands-on things I can do, and parents just sort of sometimes feel relieved to have something to do. But most of the families I talk to, they're like so close, like they're right there. They're not necessarily the families that have super high needs. They're so close, but they're struggling with a certain behavior or whatever, and they just need that extra actual tool.
Carissa, did you say NCPMI website?
Yeah, it's the pyramid model.
Oh, sure.
If you go, they kind of rearranged it. I live in constant fear that they're gonna like take that website away. I don't know what I would do. If you go under like, oh, I'm just gonna look at it real quick. I know you use it too, right, Ellen?
Not very
A
often.
lot. I use it all the time. It's kind of weird if you go at the top, there's it under implementation, and then there's family engagement. I'll just put the link in there's so much stuff. There's articles, there's social stories, there's Tucker Turtle, there's Super Friend, there's lots of stuff around visual schedules. And
yeah, and it redirected me. Oh, there you go. Yep, we had the same one. Yeah, challengesbehavior.org. Yeah.
There's a thing like how to set up rules, like a visual rule, and it's like 3. There's lots of good stuff, and it's so visual, it's so hands-on, it's so.
I will definitely be checking that out.
I think that, again, coming back, one of the things that I love about working with parenting educators as professionals is kind of more than the information provision and accuracy of content and curriculum design that is kind of expected of teachers, and really more seeing the whole thing of who you are as human beings in what you do, and how wise and your experience and what else these parents are getting beyond what they could read or finding a website. And when I did that interview with the woman from the Atlantic, we were talking a bit about parenting books, right? And I'm not a big fan of parenting books or books, period. I'm just as being a be all and an end all. And I said, well, I've written them, like, yeah, I get it. But to me, it's like a resource and it's a background for confidence building, right? It's just like, oh, I have this source, I have this, but it's about confidence, right? And so much of what we do as educators is helping to build that confidence. But the thing that you get from this human being in you guys is all of who you are as professionals and all of what you can offer. My point being that with something like the challengingbehavior.org, I think the other advantage of doing the parent coaching or whatever, and when Carissa was saying they're this close, is sometimes because they trust you, right? What they need, or what's really valuable to them, is they get so inundated with so much information, right? From so many sources. Now on social media, stuff they can find online. Somebody going, there's this book at the library. Somebody at the play date, saying, I did this with my 3-year-old, and it's just like so overwhelming that to have a professional, to have someone like you guys say, here's this resource and I think it would be helpful for you. Knowing you as a parent, knowing what you're asking, knowing your child, and knowing this dynamic between you and your child in this relationship, here's a resource or two that I would recommend. That is like, oh my God, because it helps to eliminate all this other stuff. And, and it may not end up being perfect for them, but the confidence they get that this professional, this person that they respect, who is not just, somebody just casually putting links at the end of a newsletter or something like that, but this is a trained professional who knows them and knows their family, knows the literature, and can identify a resource that is truly helpful for them, is like, you can't pay for that. I mean, you probably could pay for that, but it's amazing. So again, I think that that's the difference between parents being this close and the role of the parenting educator to offer them the resources that they get, they read it, they understand it, right? They have the confidence, I can go back to this person if I need to, but you know what? This was really helpful for me. And then maybe they don't. So again, just.
Has anyone done a lesson on critiquing different resources, like breaking family or breaking people up into groups and giving them each a book or an article and kind of analyzing it? Like, do you feel like this is a quality resource? I don't know. Has anyone ever done anything like that? Is it? No?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
I mean, years ago, we would do, how do you, more like a critical thinking kind of thing. There are so many resources out there. What are ways that you can look for something that is useful for you and your family? I mean, I always would give the story of when I was a nutritionist, there were all these books by this guy, Dr. Carlton Fredericks, and it was about eating and diet and that sort of thing. And it was like hogwash. And, but they were very popular. And then, but if you scratch the surface, you saw that Dr. Carlton Frederick was a PhD in like communications or something like that, right? And so a lot of times people won't move beyond the doctor part and sort of put value in that. So maybe just a teensy bit of critical thinking, and that's something that you could integrate into a lesson without having a whole lesson on it. would be, you know, if a book comes up, you know, is just maybe asking a parent, you know, by Krista, asking, you know, what is it that they like about the book, you know, and just getting a little bit more why, you know, how does that book seem to fit them, and just open the conversation to sort of resource selection, you
Mhm.
know, for fit. Because the resources come and go, and especially now, there's so much out there with the internet and things like that, that, you know, so.
I didn't know you used to be a nutritionist, Susan.
Yep,
Wow.
yep, my bachelor's and master's degree are in nutrition.
Oh,
Yeah. But it was my work with families, as a nutritionist and working in WIC and working with the expanded food nutrition education program that was a home visiting program back in the 60s and 70s. It was actually my work with families that made me more interested in, because what happens is you're trained in nutrition, like you're trained in the whole physiology of nutrient metabolism and things like that in diet selection. And what I realized was, like, that was so boring to me. I was so much more interested in people's lives, and especially working either with people with diabetes, or working with very low income teenage moms, or working with women with eating disorders, or whatever, is that combination of context and behavior and psychology, and then also wanting to you know, work on with families and individuals at an early age, to kind of get people, you know, sort of started in the right thing. Anyway, just that's that full circle from what we are find that we're initially interested in, to finding out what we really want to do, you know. So, well, we are past our time, and next week, I'll keep a note about Chris's question about needing families, and so we will do all of that. Thank you, everybody. Great to see you today.
thank you. Have a great weekend.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.